first thing I always say about King James Bible is if kids aren't brought up, if English-speaking people aren't brought up on King James Bible and the Book of Common Prayer, they won't understand the English literature. They won't understand the lit, because from Shakespeare on in, there are so many references and links, and so it's a key. Quite apart from anything to do with faith or religious practice, it's a key to our entire literary heritage.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating book full of wonderful stories.
Yes.
And amazing poetic images. The King James version captures, I think, all the essentials of the previous translations, but actually beefs it up into a much more readable, much more poetic, much more exhilarating narrative.
Mm. What about people who say it's too difficult to understand?
Do they? Well, they must have had rotten people reading it to them or something, because it's very, very clear, isn't it?
No, it is difficult to understand in places, but then I think things that are difficult to understand stimulate your thought and imagination. I think that people say, oh, does it mean this or does it mean that? No, I disagree with Prue. I think some of it is difficult to understand, but I don't mind that. I think that if something is not quite clear or capable of being construed in two different ways, that's good. Ambivalence makes you think, makes you re-examine, and that's all to the good, I think.
Yes, and it's just so beautiful, isn't it, to listen to, as your two readings have shown. It creates poetry, and that itself then creates further inspiration.
Who were the translators at the time?
Well, they were a wonderful group of people, but they clearly had an eye to an ear to how it was going to sound, because don't forget that people were not, the general public were not able to read at that time.
Well, like Shakespeare was written to be heard.
Yes. You had to have it read to you, and it's wonderfully rewarding stuff.
Is there any way in which it was a part when you were growing up in your decisions to become actors?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, I'm totally grateful to the 12-minute blast of Elizabethan and Jacobean text that we had at school in those days. A school assembly where readings and prayers were all from the Bible and the Book of Common Prayer. So that when you got upstairs and started doing your Shakespeare in the English class, it wasn't a foreign language, it was something you'd already been introduced to and excited by. Mm. So I think maybe people at that time in that sort of school, with that sort of teacher, that's the most important thing, I think got switched onto the language and made excited by it in a way which did stimulate a desire to go into the business, perhaps.
Well, it's also, you're giving kids, if they grow up familiar, not terrible, but acquainted with the King James Bible and the Book of Common Prayer, it's the key to English literature. I mean, if they're brought up on these modern versions, when they come to read Shakespeare or even things later than that, or even things earlier than that, it's like a foreign language instead of something you already have a feeling for and know about.
I think that the basic trouble with saying, oh, I don't like it because it's difficult to understand, is that you can pursue that argument to a ridiculous extent, where you actually say, I don't really understand anything clearly that is not the language that I speak at the bus stop, today, and that, where do you draw the line about things which are difficult to understand? I mean, it goes on to...
Well, how long did it take the
Graham
vicar to
Greene,
explain what the word heretofore means? It means
Yeah, yes,
and,
exactly. Yeah.
well, I'm grateful to old Mr. Whitaker, who used to explain the Authorised version of the Book of Common Prayer to us, because it was a key to, well, Shakespeare for a roaring kick-off, and the whole of English literature, really.
Even if you don't understand it specifically word by word, you get the gist of it.
Yes.